Dun, 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 dun,
Andre has
dun.
no idea what word he's doing.
Dun, 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 dun.
Baka.
Dun, 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 dun.
Saucy.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. How was that?
That was good. What are we doing? What are we doing though?
First of all,
I think that
I'm
kind of said it all, right?
Nomming.
Nom nom.
Yeah.
That's
Second
DC.
of all, that's the Marvel intro theme for all
On
their
our
movies.
sound check. Why would we do a Marvel intro theme?
Bring back
on
the Defenders.
on our soundtrack?
Bring back Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil. Maybe not the Defenders.
No, the Defenders.
The Defenders show was kind of sussy.
No, but all of them.
Sussy.
No, but it's the whole entire team that you need to bring back. Luke Cage, they're not bringing him back.
They might.
They said no.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure they did.
I thought you said they weren't bringing Luke Cage back.
As well as Jessica Jones. No, was it Jessica
But I
Jones? No,
know
it was Iron Fist.
Daredevil. They keep talking about bringing Daredevil. They definitely talking about Kingpin, right? Punisher is an iffy. I know the actor definitely wants to do it. John Barenthal.
Good.
Who else is out there? Iron Fist. Iron Fist, especially after what we're going to be talking about today, probably should be in, at least as a cool team up, right?
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, okay, yeah,
Maybe.
they have very similar flight paths.
True, but one is naturally powered, and the other one is artificially powered. But they're both kind of OP, right?
Artificially.
In a sense. We'll talk about that as we talk about the thing, right? The differences
powered.
between that guy and the guy that we saw yesterday, right? The guy in the comics versus the guy.
Puts Iron Fist to shame.
He kind of does.
He really
Not gonna
does.
lie.
Well, listen, to be truthful, the Iron Fist show really suffered at the very beginning because, the lead was not given enough time to actually learn martial arts. And instead of kind of like swapping him out for a stunt guy, they kept him in. And it was quite clear that a master of martial arts he was not, which kind of set the whole Iron Fist character back just because of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't believable in any sense. I hate to say it, at least in the fighting aspect of it. Maybe as the character, he was okay, but clearly there were people that were like co-characters, co-stars,
Just regular enemies.
that were clearly better than him in martial arts.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, and it showed. But anyway, this was supposed to be a sound check.
Check.
Are we checking?
Sound check.
Are we doing a checkered pass? Is this a checkmate?
Depends on.
Checkaroni. GTA SA is coming.
It really doesn't depend on that. Let's
Yes,
cut
it
it there.
is. It is. It's coming.
Nope, it doesn't depend on that at all.
Yes.
No. Sorry, you're done.
Yes.
What
Just
did
stop.
you say that?
GTA
we're done.
SA.
Cut
It doesn't matter what you're thinking.
Oh, no,
I just
it doesn't
did the rock
matter
right
what
there.
you say.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you said.
said.
I just did the rock there, by the way.
GTA SA.
Well, after that crazy sound check, all I have to say is welcome everybody to the CrossGen podcast.
Who?
Yes. Who? What?
Who?
Where?
Star-Lord, man. Yes.
See? Who?
Star-Lord, man. You don't remember that?
Did that go over your head? No, it wouldn't have gone over your head because I'm too fast. I would catch it.
What the heck is that?
Oh, now you don't know.
Oh.
Drax.
Drax. Oh, that was...
Same movie?
No, I thought that was, what's his name?
No.
Korhead.
No, that's not
Korath.
Korath.
No.
Korath.
No. That was Drax. While he was talking while he was invisible, right? Wasn't he invisible?
Yeah, he was.
And he was like, that went over your head. He was like, no, it can't. I'm too fast. I would catch it.
Yes. Drax the god.
Yes.
He didn't get enough time.
Anyway, guys, this is Walt.
I am Groot.
Shit.
Come on, he got you with the Groot thing. You gotta surpass
I don't know.
or can't.
Captain Eli. Yes. Yes. That is the best. Captain Eli.
There you go. All right. Before we get started, because we are going to be obviously, if you heard the intro, we're going to be talking about something Marvel Studios, right? We're going to be talking
I
about
don't
the
know, maybe.
latest.
No, probably DC actually.
Yeah, DC, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Definitely.
DC. You're still not close to where Marvel Studios is.
Nowhere.
But they're taking steps, right?
Somewhat.
Kind
Baby
of.
steps.
Well, WW84 was really, really a huge
And
step backwards.
You know what? You know what's funny about that?
Huge.
Literally, not too long ago. I think it was like 2-3 days ago. The WW84 commented about streamed movies that they're fake movies.
Okay,
Oh
but,
yeah, Patty Jenkins, the director.
The
said that.
director.
but like that movie
That is
came
so-
out on HBO Max.
Yes.
What?
Not to mention
WW84 came out on HBO Max. It was
horrendous.
streamed.
It was also horrendous, bro.
Well, you know what? There are movies.
I mean, look at Netflix.
Yeah, I know. Those are real movies. Those are
Those are phenomenal
the
movies.
worst Netflix movie I would say was better than WW84.
Yes, by leagues.
I don't know. I agree with that.
By
Whatever.
leagues and by
Well,
leagues.
let me
I'd
put it
rather
to you
watch
this way.
the whole entire Sharknado trilogy
Yes.
than watch that.
Yes.
But you know what? That's actually
funner.
you know what? I'd actually watch that over anything because that is the best thing ever.
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. There are times where I'm in the movie theater and I just want to walk out because the movie was so bad. WW84 has the singular accomplishment of me being home and I want to walk out of my home because it was so bad.
Yes.
So
I hated
there it is.
That was horrendous.
There it is.
0.
Sorry, Patty Jenkins,
Absolute
but
0.
I loved your first Wonder Woman movie, and as much as I loved your first Wonder Woman movie, I disliked your second
It was a disgrace.
Wonder Woman
Disgrace to all humanity.
movie. WW84
You made
should
a
not
monster.
even be a thing.
You made a monster.
Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about the super awesome newest offering by Marvel Studios. That is
Yes.
Shang-Chi
Shang-Chi.
and The Legend of the Ten Rings.
10 rings.
Fantastic movie, but we're going to get into that. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the CrossGen podcast. And check out our webpage for Talents 55 Studios, which includes not only this great podcast, but our other podcast fair, which is the Get Geek podcast, which deals more hardcore into geek stuff, right, than we do. We're kind of like a little light. We touch about everything here.
Yeah,
But
it's
Get
like
Geek, if you're really into nerdy and geek stuff and comic books and video games and stuff like that, definitely check them out. And if you want to go into a real world political news type of bent, I would suggest go and check out the awesome Positively Cynical podcast.
very, very cynical.
Yes.
Cynical.
So we have a little bit of everything in the Talents 55 Studios network. So definitely check them out and hopefully keep checking us out. Anyway, I say we should get started, right?
Yeah.
Again, we are going to be talking about the awesome, and I'm kind of signaling how I thought about the movie before we actually get into it. But
Yep.
let's talk about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is a movie that just recently came out on September 3rd. It was directed by Dustin Daniel Cretton. Obviously, he also did the screenplay for it. Along with David Callahan, and it stars in our titular role of Shang-Chi. Simu Liu, Aquafina is there as the character of Katie. We have Tony Leung Chiu Wai, who plays. He's difficult to say who he plays without kind of spoiling the movie. So I think we're gonna leave that out for
Yeah.
now, right?
Okay.
Because there is a sense of what people believe who he is, but maybe that's not quite accurate. So
Wait,
we'll
what?
leave his character name out. Um, it also stars Michelle Yao as Jiaying Nan, Florian Muntu from Rocky fame. He plays Razor Fist. Well, I'm not even going to say about him because he is a pleasant surprise to the movie. So we'll get back
An
to him.
amazing surprise.
And last but
Destroyer
not least,
worlds.
in a very, very important role to this movie, Menger Zhang, who plays the character of Zhu Jiang. I hope I said those names right, but there we go. So that's
Yep.
the cast of this movie. Again, this movie came out September 3rd, and not only did it come out, but it came out to an amazing stat.
Came out swinging, literally.
Swinging is definitely a good term for it because Shang-Chi not only had the second best pandemic era opening weekend since unfortunately this whole pandemic started. Uh, that that number one spot does go to Black Widow because Black Widow did open what $80.3 million on its opening weekend.
Damn.
But Shang-Chi is right below it at 71 million. And it's important to note that it's not only the second best pandemic record, right? So opening, it is the best Labor Day opening weekend ever. Let that sink in. Because
Another-
Impressive.
the Labor Day weekend
Most
is
impressive.
usually known for very sluggish box office sales, right? The figures are never the same. I told you that it was $71 million for the box office opening. You know what the record was previously?
What?
That record was previously held by Halloween, the new one, right?
Ooh.
And that movie raked in a total of
29.
$30.6 million.
Wow,
Ooh.
it's smashed it.
It-
Michael Myers has been pulverized. He's not dead. He's actually dead after this.
Yes, he has
Yeah.
been destroyed by the 10 rings.
Oh man.
It's not even close. And I wonder if it could be just the pent up want to see of
Yeah.
a really good movie. And Marvel Studios is kind of like a fan favorite, but it transcends even the fans because even casual people love to go see Marvel movies. I wonder if that had something to play with that played into it as well,
I
right?
think it was the pandemic mainly.
Yeah, but it destroyed. And this is not just pandemic record. This is overall all time.
Yeah.
So that is significant. That is really significant. So kudos to the crew, kudos to the cast of Shang-Chi. You guys have been immortalized in a sense. But yeah. So guys, people probably already know how I feel about it. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But just general thoughts. What let's put it this way. What was your feeling going into the movie? And how did you think the movie did after you watched it and left the movie theater?
I walked in. I was prepared to enjoy it. I was not expecting to love it.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, I think I had that same feeling. I mean, to be honest, if I'm being really honest here, I didn't even really know who Shang-Chi was before the movie, so I couldn't exactly. The hype was there, obviously, because, it's the next Marvel movie, and of course they're always going to be awesome. But,
It's also kind of the start of the next phase of Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel Studios.
And I guess I didn't really realize that. And when I was walking in, yeah, I was prepared, like you said, to enjoy it and not really love it. But when yeah, it obviously changed for me, definitely. by leagues.
Okay. As you guys know, I love the film. I would almost venture to say that it is probably one of my favorites, if not top three non-Avenger Marvel Studios films.
Hmm.
I felt that it was that good.
Yeah.
I again, I was kind of like Eli. I this is I'll be really frank and honest. I wasn't too familiar with the character of Shang-Chi. Um, and so, I do know that he was a street level hero. His first comics came out in the 70s, around the time, the big, when we had that influx of all those Hong Kong and Chinese and martial arts films,
Yeah.
the Shaw Brothers and things like that, which you can see that there was definitely a direct influence to this film from the Shaw Brothers films and from like 80s martial arts cinema, right? Um, but I didn't have a good appreciation of the character of Shang-Chi. But after watching this film, this film was just, it was an eye opener of how well not only they honored, Asian culture and
Yeah.
and they didn't appropriate it in any way, but what I loved about it is that not only did it go into the martial arts stuff, but it really pulled in a lot of mythological stuff
Yeah,
that comes
definitely.
from from the Chinese culture. There was a lot of mythology in there, and it was nice to see that. It wasn't just a standard beat 'em up flick. It was a little bit something a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's why it's easily one of my top three in terms of really, really loving the film. And there was a lot of surprises in the film too, right?
Yes, there really was.
But
Yes.
let me ask you this question, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why it's so significantly one of my top three. If it didn't have Marvel Studios on it, you would never know that this is a Marvel film, right? I
To
mean,
be fair,
Mm,
yes.
I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the things that I really love about it because it kind of does follow the Marvel way of doing things, especially with that ending. But while there was some tiebacks to the Marvel Studios universe at large, it really didn't focus and heavily lean on that. It was literally its own story. And like I said, if you take out the Marvel Studios branding, this could be just any other film. And that's why I really like it, because I love it when Marvel Studios, instead of sticking with the superhero genre, they branch out into other genres, right? And try and incorporate it. And I think they did an awesome job in bringing that stuff into the Marvel Studios brand without making it feel like Marvel Studios. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think midway through the movie, I sort of forgot that it was a freaking Marvel movie because of
Yeah.
how different it was. Right?
Yeah.
There were like a crap ton of changes, not just like in terms of genre, just overall everything. At least in my opinion, right?
Not even that, because a lot of the other movies, they focus on things that have happened before.
Yeah.
You got next to none of that in this film, and I think it did it wonders. Like, maybe you got a very brief mention of the snap.
Right.
Maybe you got uh, uh that's the only thing I can really think of.
That's
Well, the end credit scene
Okay, but
had
I'm
a
talking
really
Well,
good
about
tieback, right?
actually
it's
in
Right.
the
cameos.
In the
movie.
movie, you're right. It was, they did have like, there were posters talking about the post blip and how it affects people. At the very beginning, they mentioned how everything changed, right, because of the blip. I hate saying the word blip, by the way, but
They should
Don't
have
whatever.
say
left it
it.
as
The snap.
snap.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
It's Thanos' snap. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, but really, other than that, I mean, there was really no mentions of any Marvel characters, although we did see some,
Yeah,
right?
except for that, but it's not like they took center stage in any way like
Right.
they normally do. This
Mhm.
was all about the main character. They gave Shang-Chi the room he needed to breathe and all the other characters that they ended up bringing into the film. So I really like that about it.
How did you like the film in terms of it being an origin film, an origin story? Because a lot of people are kind of turned off with origin stories right now, right? We've seen it happen too many times with Spider-Man and Batman and things of that nature, and people are kind of like shying away from that stuff.
All
But
right, but here's the thing: not only did A, you kind of needed it, but B, it was an awesome origin story, and it took turns that maybe you could have had a little foresight on, but otherwise you didn't really see coming.
so, do you guys want to get into spoiler territory here?
Sure.
I think we should, because I'm
please.
dying to talk about the movie itself, right?
Go watch it now. Now.
So here we
Do it.
are, and we are officially pulling down the spoiler wall.
Do it.
If you guys haven't watched it, literally, I'm asking you to pause this show, go to a movie theater. Of course, be safe, because we still are in pandemic conditions. But go watch the crap out of this movie, because it is awesome. So, spoiler territory. You've been warned, as they say, right? It's interesting how the introduction to Shang-Chi, the character, is that he's basically a slacker. Right?
Yes.
That's something that I was not expecting.
That was freaking awesome.
Him and Katie, which is his best friend in the movie, they're basically people with no path whatsoever. They're like 20 to 30-year-olds that really don't have a clue, right? In terms of like their future and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And they're basically slackers.
They're literally living with their parents.
Yeah, exactly. you know, I
Well,
found that interesting. I found that surprising. What did you guys think?
I mean, except for Shang-Chi, but yeah, I didn't really mind that.
No, I didn't
No,
mind
it's
it,
not
but
that
I
we
just thought it
didn't.
was like, whoa,
That was
slackery guy.
sort of
You know?
funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They
With
had
the-
they played a lot of fun, especially
It kind of
The
reminded
car.
me a lot of
The car was
the
awesome.
dynamic
Yeah.
between Mordecai and
Ballet.
Rigby.
Yeah, it's you're right. It was like oh my gosh.
Shang-Chi is Mordecai and Katie is Rigby.
It's Rigby, bro. That is freaking amazing. Yeah, but they had that like the valet car thing. Oh
so
my gosh.
they're basically valets, car valets,
Yeah.
right? That's what they do. And apparently um they love doing what they're doing, even though it's, you know, um their parents are kind of not agreeing with that, because
Yeah.
they figure that they could be doing something better. Not to say that car valet is you know uh, a bad profession, but in terms of the movie, um, they feel like they could be, either in school or whatever, whatever has you. Um, but they have that awesome scene with the car, right, where
Yes.
Katie hijacks a BMW.
Yes.
The guy literally brings it in, and it's funny because the start of the movie, and this is why it's so surprising, right? The start of the movie shows somebody putting on a suit and a tie and jumping
yeah,
into the
that was
BMW.
awesome.
And the thought is you're looking at Shang-Chi, right? But
Oh,
it turns
gosh.
out it happens to be the guy that owns the BMW. And that's the introduction, because he kind of flips very disrespectfully, right? The keys to Shang-Chi and just says, just park my car, dude, or something to that
Yeah.
effect, right?
Yes.
But that's when Katie jumps in and she's like, come on, let me park the car. Let me park the car. I'm going to be fine. You trust me, right?
We're gonna go slow.
What's slow for her? Like 110 miles per hour through
Like
San Francisco?
300,000.
Yes.
Jesus.
God.
And Shang-Chi's face the entire time while he was in the car, right?
He's like, oh my god.
I'm going to die.
Yeah. She's the reason I'm gonna get killed so early on in the movie.
But you see the interesting dynamic between the two, because Katie is really, really the freestyle, life loving person. She holds a really, really big influence on Shang-Chi's character, right?
Yeah.
She's kind of like the leader, and Shang is his name is Sean
At that point.
at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll find out later he's hiding out for a very specific reason. But Sean is kind of like the follower to Katie's lead, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of in a sense smitten with Katie, but he doesn't want to admit it because they're just quote unquote friends, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then we have that really, really awesome montage where it's like, well, they go to the grandma's house, they have food, and they're like, you know what? We just finished work. Maybe we should do the responsible thing, go home, get
Yes.
some sleep. And then who is it? It was Katie that said it? Or
Or
maybe we could
then it
And
just
then they
cuts to
go
the
like karaoke, going and doing
bar
karaoke, and
hopping,
yeah.
drinking, getting wrecked, right? So, and that happens later on in the film also, but we'll get to that too.
Yeah, yes.
Because as funny
Yes.
as that one
I did
was,
not expect that from that
Yes.
character.
as funny as that was,
Yes.
the second one was better, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing.
So eventually, what happens is that Shang-Chi is we find out that he knows what he's doing. He's been training because there is a fight where we get introduced to Razor Fist, who is an assassin for his father's 10 Rings organization. And we see that Shang-Chi does know what he's doing. He's a very, very accomplished martial artist. And they're after the pendant that he has. And later on, we find out that that is a key to everything that goes on. And we also find out that he has a sister that he's estranged from. And so basically what he's doing in San Francisco is he's hiding out from his father. His father seems to be like this really, really big bad guy, right? And Tony Leung, which is a fantastic character, and he was so awesome in this film. We get his backstory also, right?
Yep.
Where he's kind of like there's this mystical
10
the 10 rings apparatus, right?
Yeah.
Is it magic? We don't know.
It's implied it could be magic. It's implied it could be
Something
It's not
else.
from
implied.
a little beyond
We don't
our
know.
realm,
Right.
Yeah, we
as
don't
in
really
the
know.
planet.
It's unknown.
But whoever has it is granted great power. They have the ability to wield that almost as a weapon. It also helps them kind of fly in a sense, right? Not
They
maybe
could
not
do
fly.
a kind of Hulk jump.
It's like a rocket jump almost, right? So,
Yeah.
so you have that, and apparently his character is thousands of years old because it also grants immortality to us in the sense, or at least
Oh, it
long
does.
life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have that, and so Shang-Chi's on the run, but at that point he realizes that his sister's in trouble, so he has to leave San Francisco. And Katie unwittingly says, "Well, you know what? I'm going to go with you anyway. You're my best friend in the world. I'm not going to let you do this on your own." And so they're off, and that's when we have the first of the Marvel Studio um, cameos, right? Because we head over to the sister's
Yes.
place, and the sister is in Hong Kong, I believe. I forgot where.
I
No, she
don't
was like-
quite remember either.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was, but it was outside of the United States. It's either Hong Kong or one of those places out there, and that's where we see that she holds a fighting organization and
Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Fight Club.
And the people who are fighting, we've seen it in the trailer already, but it's Abomination and Wong.
Oh, but
from
they have
Doctor
more than
Strange.
that too.
Oh yeah,
You
there's
also
definitely
had like a dude with extremists there. I was surprised to see that.
yeah. And so and it's funny because Wong and Abomination are fighting, right? But it turns out they're actually friends. Which was
That
really
was
weird.
really
Oh
weird.
god, that was so weird, bro.
So Wong is getting his butt handed to him until he starts using his magic, and then Abomination ends up knocking Abomination out. Watch the movie to see how that's done, but it was pretty cool the way they did it, right?
Yeah.
But then so we're thinking, wow, they're mortal enemies. But then Wong comes over and was like, "Are you okay? I told you have to train a little bit better.
Yes.
Let's go back." And so they, he opens up a portal and they end up going back to Doctor Strange's lair or whatever, wherever they were.
That was Abomination's holding facility.
Oh, okay, there you go. So it's clear that there is a kind of like a friendship, which kind of was surprising, right?
That was so
Yeah,
weird.
I was kind of expecting Abomination to be a little more abominable,
Yeah.
but he wasn't. And it's very weird because, and while it was kind of funny and it fit the movie pretty well, they're giving him the Hulk treatment, and I really don't
Mm.
like that upon looking at it.
Hulk, in terms of he's like the mindless.
No, no, no. Hulk, as in what they've done to Hulk in the MCU.
Yeah.
Oh, they've depowered him in a
They've
sense.
depowered him. They've made him like
They
very
made
docile.
yeah, it
I don't know.
wasn't okay. what
That's
they
the
did to
one
him.
thing I'm gonna say I didn't quite that didn't quite sit very well with me, but it worked for the movie. I will
Mhm.
give it that. I will give it that.
Okay.
Mm.
Let me ask you a question on Abomination and his look. Did it seem like it changed from the Incredible Hulk?
It did.
It didn't look exactly the same way that the first time and the only time that we've seen him in the MCU, right? He looks different. Like he's evolved a little bit further since the first time we saw him in the Incredible Hulk, right?
Yeah, he got
His
the
spikes.
the fins on his
For his
ears.
ears.
Um, I don't think I remember seeing the spikes on his elbows either.
Yeah.
I think
So
he dropped those.
so it looks like he's evolved further from the last time we've seen him. Is
Yeah,
that a good
Yeah,
thing or a bad
definitely.
thing?
that's a good thing.
It looks
Ah,
more in line with his
Comic
comic
look.
book look.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
don't
that was
like it.
cool.
It looks weird though.
So the whole point is that Shang-Chi's father is after these pendants, and there are two pendants. One of them Shang-Chi has, and the other one his sister has, who is Zhu Jialing, right? And so, they're after him. And let's talk about, so there's a huge fight, and eventually they all get captured, right? But let's talk about this because I thought this was probably one of the best things that we've seen in Marvel Studios and their films, the fight choreography, which is very different. I think the pinnacle of fight choreography so far in the MCU would happen to be the Winter Soldier. That's my personal opinion. I think the fights in that were great. Um, and again, maybe this is because we've just seen it and we have that big impression that we got from this. But I actually happen to think that the fights in this movie far surpasses anything we've seen in the MCU right now. You guys agree?
Um, I'd say yes. The only thing is that it did look a little bit choreographed,
Mm-hmm.
a little noticeably choreographed, but I understand that's the genre too, in a sense.
Right.
But even then, it was still pretty off the wall and awesome. Like the part where he was fighting that masked ninja that trained him,
Mm-hmm.
and like all the decisions that went into that fight. He's like, okay, I got to keep him at bay. Okay, wait, maybe I need to be a little more aggressive. Okay, I have him. What am I going to do? Am I going to kill him or not? He remembers something. Okay, I'm going to kill him and go through with it.
And that character is named Death Dealer and is played by Andy Lee.
Death
So, the
dealer.
Death Dealer, which was a cool looking character, by the way.
Yeah,
I'd
he
have to
looked.
say,
He looked horrifying.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
Yeah.
did. Um, would it surprise you if I told you that the fight choreographer for this movie trained under Jackie Chan?
Oh
Wow. Okay.
no.
So does that change the way you see these fights and stuff? Because when you're watching it, you can kind of see some of the influence that Jackie Chan has in terms of how the fight choreographer kind of framed these scenes, because there was a lot of Jackie Chanish type things, like jumping, especially during that fight scene on the side of the building on the scaffolding, that is something that I think you would definitely see in a Jackie Chan film.
It's been a very long time since I've seen a Jackie Chan film,
We need to change that.
but I will. I don't doubt that you're. I don't doubt that you're right. I don't doubt it.
Yep.
Bro, the fight scenes were awesome.
Yeah, the fight scenes were really, really good.
The one in the bus, especially. I like that one the most,
That was
honestly.
the one very early on, right? When the Assassins
Yeah.
and Razor Fist came
Bro,
on, right?
what
And
the
again,
frick?
you kind of see some influence of Jackie Chan in there
Yeah,
because
because the whole thing is that you're using your surroundings as a way to sort of evade your enemy's attacks, or just use it to all out attack your enemies, and that was
That's something I vaguely remember from his films. Like he'll just take a random thing out of nowhere and just go pop, pop,
Yep.
pop, pop.
yeah.
and there was a lot of martial arts parkour,
Yeah,
so to
it
speak,
was.
Yeah.
which he's famous for.
Yeah, it was more so. It wasn't about strength that you could see in
It's
this film.
fluidity.
Yeah, it's more of the flow, your movement, how quick you can get around, your agility, and that is something that you saw incredibly
And using
in
your
such.
environments, like you said,
Yeah,
right?
like literally inside the bus. It's such a small space, but you can literally you have those poles which you can sort of climb around, and oh my god.
The thing about it is that Shang-Chi was not limited because of the space. Like he used the space,
Yeah,
like he
it's
was flinging himself around through the poles, trying to going into these small tight spaces, and it didn't stop him from doing what he needed to do.
Yeah, that's something that you don't really see in a lot of Marvel movies. Adjusting to your environment, adjusting to how much space you have, you don't see that much, and that's why these fight scenes, stood out by leagues to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I really enjoyed the fight scenes in this movie. And I think probably, again, that's one of the reasons why I love the movie because, you know what? It wasn't shaky cam
yeah,
like
it
some
wasn't.
movies do, Born Supremacy. I can that's one that really comes to to my head when I think of shaky cam, and it limits when you do shaky cam. It limits what you're seeing on screen. To me it's a distraction more than anything because I want to see the moves. I want to see the fluidity. I want to see the impact that these fights have on one. So it was a very clear presentation of these fight scenes, which I appreciated.
Definitely.
So eventually, we find out that. So let's talk about Tony Leung's character, because I think he's fascinating. And in that vein, we're going to talk about the other MCU character that shows up, which is a surprise to all of us, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's heavily implied that Tony Leung is the Mandarin, right? He's the leader of the Ten Rings. And we did have a character previously played by Ben Kingsley who took on the role of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, I believe, right? It was Iron Man
Yes.
3.
Yeah.
It turns out the Mandarin, the name the Mandarin, is a name that was co-opted by Trevor Slattery and his ilk, his group. It doesn't exist. The Mandarin as a character, a real life character in the MCU, doesn't exist. And we had that explanation when Tony Leung is talking to his kids at the table after he's kind of effectively, quote unquote, kidnapped them and brought them home, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, well, there was this guy and, he used my organization. So that is true. But then he created this visage, this persona, the Mandarin, which doesn't exist. I'm not the Mandarin. I've been called many names, but I'm not. I've never been called the Mandarin.
He even said that it was like a name after
Named
after a
after a
food
dish.
or
Yeah,
after a
exactly.
dish, which was
No,
like
no, Mandarin orange.
yeah, a mandarin orange.
Right.
Yeah, and it was like
He was like the guy's a fruit.
yeah.
Literally, that's what he said, right?
God.
His name is actually Weng Wu, right? That's his name in the movie,
Yeah.
and you know there is no Mandarin. So, the reveal of who's the Mandarin, well, we never got that because technically, according to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Mandarin never existed. This was a fake persona used by um, the bad guy from Iron Man 3. I can't remember. The
Extremist.
extremist guy. I
What I
forget what his name.
think,
The
Aldrich
God.
Killian.
There you go.
The God.
He headed AIM. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
He did?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
AIM?
Yep.
Yeah. AIM.
That's how they
They
came up
made
with the extremists.
extremists.
Oh.
Yeah. So the Mandarin was kind of a boogeyman created by the extremist organization AIM,
AIM.
to kind of like terrorize everybody, especially America, right?
Yeah.
And so he found that funny and stuff. The interesting thing is that Trevor Slattery makes an appearance in this movie.
Yes, the God, the ultimate Thanos destroyer.
He is by
Oh,
far
man.
the greatest character in MCU history.
Not in MCU history, in movie history, in cinema history.
So he was arrested by the U.S. government, and apparently the Ten Rings sprung him, and they captured him, and they brought him to their facility, and they were going to execute him until they found out he's a great actor.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my
So
God.
he's basically, as to quote Katie, because they do find him when they're jailed. He's basically the court jester,
Yes. Yes.
but he embraces it, right?
Yes.
He's found his purpose. He's cleaned up his act. He's no longer a raging alcoholic. He's a straight and narrow, and he's focusing on his craft of acting
Yes.
while
What a
being
god.
held hostage by the person that wanted to kill him.
God.
What a god.
He is Ben Kingsley plays him awesome, and it's funny because when the director approached Ben Kingsley, he had a sense of saying, you know what, I want to bring this character back because it makes sense for the story, but I don't know if Ben Kingsley wants to do it. And so when he had the conversation, Ben Kingsley immediately started playing the role of Trevor Slattery.
Wait. No, for real?
Yep, that's the story, which confused the director because
Oh god.
he thought that Ben Kingsley was kind of saying no, but he went off on this tangent and he went full Trevor, and it took him a while, but he finally realized, oh, that means yes. And Ben was like 100% yes. I need to be in this film. I need to be Trevor
Yes.
one more time.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Big ups to Ben Kingsley for reprising the role of Trevor
For
Slattery.
being a god.
Yes.
Yes.
That brings me into the next part of the discussion that we want to talk about, because the whole premise of getting these two pendants is to open up a map, right? To get to this mystical place called Taolao, right?
Yeah.
Talo.
Talo.
Yeah.
It's the place where he Tony Lung's character, Wen Wu, right? He found the love of his life, and she actually changed him to stop being the person that he was, because now he had purpose, right? And that's obviously Xialing and Shang-Chi's mom, right? But we see during the film that she was killed because Wen Wu's past, caught up with him. And while he was away, some guys that he messed with back in the days,
The Iron
came
Gang.
in, a hired
Iron
gang came
Gang.
in, and
Yes.
as powerful as Laiko Wu is,
She lost her power.
But she still
no, but she still was a very, very
Okay, well,
Good
yeah,
accomplished
martial
okay,
fighter,
well,
artist.
yes.
Yeah.
as you can tell, because she basically killed everybody that was there except for the boss, right?
Yeah.
But in doing that and protecting her kids, she lost her life, right? And so that kind of started the path that Shang-Chi was put on, because now when Wu realizes that no matter what he did, his past would always define him, and as much as his wife, like how was trying to change him, in his mind she was wrong, and he was never going to change. And so that's when, at 7 years old, I think he was, right, he started training Shang to be an assassin.
Yeah.
And his sister was not offered that same opportunity because of the resentment that he had, because every time he saw her, it would always remind him of his wife. So he kind of shunned the daughter, but the daughter trained in secret. She watched everything that the boys were doing, and her thing was, I'm going to train and I'm going to do it better.
Mm.
So eventually they find the killer, and Shang is sent off to be the one to, you know, gain vengeance against this guy. Um,
To avenge.
mhm. Yeah, to avenge his mom.
Mm.
But so, you have all that backdrop, but what ends up happening is that when Wu starts hearing voices, and he starts hearing his wife, and the voice is telling him that she's at
Talo.
Talo,
Hit
Oh.
him. Hit it.
Behind the gates.
Prison behind the gate.
Yeah.
right, the dark gate, to
Mm.
be specific, and that'll play a part. So the whole thing about getting these pendants was to open up the map, because you cannot just go there, because there is a bamboo forest. Again, another mythological thing from Chinese lore, and bamboos obviously play a big part in that culture, right? There's a bamboo forest that opens and shuts based on who's going there and the time of day, and it offers a path, but you have to know the path to get there. Otherwise, the forest kills you,
Yeah.
right? So the whole reason for getting those two pendants is to open up that map. Trevor, however, and surprising how important Trevor is to the story, Trevor has a very, very interesting pet
Friend almost.
friend, right? Because he talks to this friend,
Yeah.
this pet. His name is Morris.
The god.
So
Morris.
Trevor has named his pet Morris. And it's a furry creature that literally Trevor thought was all part of his imagination, right?
You're like, oh my god, I'm so happy to see that you're real, and they
Yeah,
see
he's like,
you.
you can see him. He tells Shang and Xiao Ling and Katie, because the creature comes out and is like, oh, what is that? And how would you describe that thing? It's like a fur ball with 6 legs and wings, right?
It has like 4 wings, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe
Yeah.
6, like 6 legs. It's furry, but it has no head.
Yeah. It has
No
no,
head,
face.
no face.
Yeah. It's just like a block with wings.
But here's where I'm getting into it, because they do end up going to Tao Lo, right? And that's when we really, really start to see all the mythological creatures that come from Chinese folklore. So Morris, believe it or not, is a creature that's based on a mountain dwelling primordial god,
What the?
and they are called Dai Jiang, okay, or sometimes called the divine Dai Jiang, and it appears from an ancient text that goes as far back as 400 BC. I believe it's called the Classic of Mountains and Seas, right?
Hmm.
So that's the first of many creatures that we see um, from mythological Chinese lore, right? And I think the one that a lot of people will recognize once Shang and Katie and Xialing and Trevor make it to Tao Lo, right? The one that people will recognize instantly is the nine-tailed fox,
Yep.
right?
I mean, I thought the phoenix was also pretty recognizable.
The
Well,
Phoenix
yeah,
is,
yeah.
but for a lot of fans of anime here in the
Okay, well, yeah,
States,
all right.
the
Nine-tailed
nine-tailed
fox.
fox has a very, very significant place, right?
Yeah.
And it's featured in the anime Naruto,
Yep.
right? Now, it's interesting to note that the nine-tailed fox is actually called in folklore, and again, coming from the text of the classic of mountains and seas, it's called the Huli Jing, right?
Illusion.
And the nine-tailed fox has inspired a lot of modern works, both in film and television. Again, like I say, most
Naruto.
prominently in Naruto, right?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be mischievous spirits, believe it or not.
Mischievous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And their presence is usually either dire portents or omens of great fortune. So you can go either way with them. Either if you see a nine-tailed fox, something really, really good's going to happen. And if you see one, maybe something really, really bad will happen, right?
Oh, so kind of like a djinn.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So and the thing about it is that after thousands of years of age, they can ascend to heaven and attain divinity. So that's how
Hmm.
powerful. But those aren't the only ones that you see. Again, Andre mentioned the phoenixes, which are in again another creature from the classic of mountain and seas, Fen Huang. Okay,
Huh.
which is often compared to a phoenix, and they're kind of like a creature that rules all over all birds. So they're kind of like the king of birds.
Hmm.
Um, one of the cooler ones that I saw was the shishi,
Yo.
the guardian
Yo,
lions, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
those.
those
Which
are
are
pretty
also
cool.
called food dogs as well. And so we saw a pair of them in the
There were like
movie.
three or
Was it
three
three?
or three or so.
Yeah, I think maybe like three,
Three,
maybe
four,
more.
two. Yeah.
So these creatures were inspired by lions that arrived in China coming through the Silk Road,
Hmm.
um, and this happened during the Han Dynasty, and they're kind of regal because if you notice, especially in architecture, there's a lot of stone lion depictions. So that's they're very very popular.
Yeah.
There's also the one that uh, Trevor looked at, and he was like, "Well, that's a weird looking horse,"
Yeah.
and those are keelings,
Keelings.
keelan, right?
Yeah.
And they're actually they actually go back to 5th century BC. And they're supposed to the pair was supposed to have appeared in the garden of the deified Yellow Emperor,
Hmm.
and they help establish the role of emperor into a divine one. That's how important they are. They accompany deities as pets. So obviously, if an emperor was able to capture one, right, then the implication is, well, the emperor has to be a deity because he's holding one of these as pets, right? So you have all these mythological creatures. What did you guys think about that? I thought it was a very very interesting um,
Awesome.
Yeah.
depiction and entry into the MCU universe because now again we're dealing with magic, which I believe is going to be a big part of the next phase.
Yes, and it is an aspect of the phase I welcome greatly. And not even that, we have I mean, yes, the don't mind that I said that. That is like super duper awesome. Like it's a great way to change up because normally you're used to seeing, well, I mean, technically we're gonna get vampires soon, but now you have something other than those stuff you're normally used to, and you have a new vibranium in dragon scales, which was also pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
And that's another creature that we do see. And the dragon is clearly attached to Shang-Chi, right? But dragon scales. How awesome is that? Dragon scales are, like you said, the equivalent of vibranium, right?
Yeah.
In that universe. Because unbeknownst to everybody, this is a multiversal story.
I don't
Wait,
know.
huh?
Wait, is it
That's
confirmed?
why I was a little
You didn't catch that?
confused. No, explain that, please.
So when the character who ends up being the aunt to both Shang-Chi and Xialing, the character's name is Nan, sorry. When do you remember the point where she's explaining, the
Okay.
whole thing of Tao Lao and
Yeah.
how in this, she kept on mentioning in this universe, how we
Well,
stopped the dweller in darkness from coming to your universe.
because, well, again, that doesn't necessarily mean multiverse, because it's already been established that that is a dimension uh separate from the Earth. The dark dimension is also a place separate from the Earth, and that's considered its own universe. So I don't think it's necessarily one of these things where it's a multiversal thing. It's more so, I see that as more of a dark dimension type thing.
Okay, okay. Well, I
Mm,
guess we'll find out as time goes on, right? But I kind of took it, especially with what's been going on with Loki, and the Wandaverse, and now we're getting Doctor Strange, and the the multitude of madness, right? The
Multiverse.
multiverse of
multiverse.
madness, right? I kind of took it as that being kind of like a thing where it's like this is a different universe than our MCU universe, and especially the fact that they had to go through a portal, right, to reach this place. This wasn't a place that was easily accessible, and there was something magical and strange about it. So that's why I kind of took it as we're in a totally different universe where the rules aren't the same. And she mentioned, the entire world, and we've never gotten that sense that something like that happened in the MCU universe. She talked about the fight that they previously had with the Dweller in Darkness, right? Which, interestingly enough, again, a Doctor Strange villain, right? So that's
Mm.
why I took it, these little nuggets and the emphasis that she kept on placing on the word universe. That's why I thought it was a multiversal story.
But that's still
So,
it's weird to me because it's
You can
sort of
use
doesn't make
that.
sense
You can. I can see where. I don't know. I just don't see it as that. Like,
unless yeah,
no, no, keep going.
unless you explain how the portal works, then it'll make sense because
Because
I still don't understand how the whole bamboo trees portal thing
to be fair, you
works.
take a portal to the dark dimension too.
Hmm.
Although it's more of a
Maybe.
tear in the fabric of reality, this is still a portal.
I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I mean, it makes sense.
okay.
And what they said? Oh wait, no. Didn't they say that the thing with the different dragons and stuff coming from the gate,
Different
the
dragons.
dragon gate, whatever, the dark
The
gate, the
Dark
one with
Gate.
the like the dragons, like the
Okay.
you guys know what I'm talking about with like the dragon things, the
The
soul
dragon
eaters.
scales or the
The
soul?
Soul
What about the
Eaters.
soul
Yeah, they
eaters?
looked like dragons.
They
Right, they
very
do.
barely look like
They do,
dragons.
right?
They kind of, yeah. I mean,
Alien dragons. Yeah, forget it.
yeah. No,
I'm
no,
going
no.
off.
They're kind of there. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's gonna be one of these things where there has to be a discussion on what what that actually means, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see um, more more information on that as we go along,
I don't know.
in this next phase, you know.
I don't know.
Um, but yeah, we have, so there's that, right? Um, so eventually, what ends up happening is that when Wu finally finds his way into that, right, into that new realm. Let's call it that. It's a realm, right? And we find out that the reason why uh he's hearing these voices is because this has happened before to other people. But and and the dark gate is kind of like a cage, right? Is that a good way of explaining
Yeah,
it?
it is sealed up with dragon scales. It's more or less. You know what?
It's a
I don't
gate.
even think it's a
Yeah,
cage.
it's
Really, it's more like a. It's more like that, is a point of entry
Yeah.
between their realm and Tao Lo.
Like I said, it's literally a gate.
Yeah, it's just they blocked up that gate with like
Yeah.
cobblestone in term
And
Okay.
in Minecraft.
Dragonstone. I mean,
Dragon
Dragonstones.
stones.
Oh my god. Freaking Dokkan. Dragon scales. There you go.
Dragon scale. So dragon scales really, really is holding this thing back. But um, the thing about it is that there is this being, I guess, is the best way of saying it, right? Is it a being? Is it a god? How
I
would
don't think
you?
it's a god.
How
It's a
would?
being.
It's a being, right?
Yeah, it's like a not a Dormammu type thing. Well, maybe a little bit like a Dormammu type thing, just not as strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd just say otherworldly being. Yeah.
An otherworldly being. Okay. So this force, the dweller in darkness, is really the reason why he's hearing these voices, and the reason why he's specifically calling for Wang Wu to kind of free his wife from the dark gate, which we obviously know that that's not true, is because for all the other people that have tried to free him from the dark gate and failed, Wen Wu holds the power of the 10 rings. And the
Mhm.
10 rings is the one that can break down this gate. And you see as the gate starts to fall, those creatures that you were talking about, these soul eaters, would then grab and go into the battlefield, grab people's souls and bring it back to make the dweller in darkness even more and more powerful.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the ending. And it's it's interesting because the ending becomes a kaiju fight, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Big spectacle. I think for me that was probably the weakest point of the movie.
Definitely.
Okay, and I'll say this: I think the fight that he had with Shang-Chi with Wen Wu at the very end in front of the Dark Gate, I think that really, really signified the main battle of the film because
Hmm.
it was not only it was an awesome fight to watch. It was a transformative fight for Shang-Chi, right? Because at that point, he was always in the shadow of his father, and at that point, he decided to quote unquote stop being scared of him, right? But not only that, I thought it was also an emotional fight as well, and that's why there was a lot of weight to that fight. So for me, that was the main fight, and what happened afterwards was kind of like just the Marvel formula at work, where you have to have this big spectacle and stuff like that. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so.
I don't really, as much as it was like a nod to like Chinese culture with like the dragons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as much as I liked it, I thought it would have been better to have, like you said, the father and Shang-Chi, that fight, because mainly because you weren't giving the characters a little bit more time to shine. I mean, you gave them time, but like they weren't at the forefront of the finale, and with the dragons there, it sort of took away from a more personal,
Uh,
Yeah,
more, yeah,
I agree with that. I think when you got into the fight between the dragon and the Dweller in Darkness, which did feature Shang-Chi, right?
yeah, it
Because he's the
did,
one that eventually ended the fight. But I think that was more of an impersonal fight as opposed to him and his father.
yeah,
I thought that one had a lot of emotional weight. There was definitely character development just in that fight alone. You know,
yeah,
so I thought it was really, really. I thought that was probably one of the highlights of the film, to be honest.
yeah,
That fight right there. You know.
Sidebar. I am actually now of the opinion, more and more as I actually did just a little bit of looking online, the dragon is not. Fing Fang Foom.
Yes, yes. I think
Yeah, that
I think
wasn't.
kind of the movie kind of
Yeah.
it did not say that it was, but I think the implication was it definitely was not Fing Fang Foom.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
And I think he will be definitely coming in the future.
well, you already have dragons. Why not?
Yep.
Right?
No, but
Yep.
not even that. Remember, the 10 rings are from outer space, right?
Oh, Fing Fang Foom is
From outer
outer
space.
space.
Not only that, further reading indicates that they were made by a species of dragon like aliens, of
Interesting.
which
Ooh.
Fin Fang Foom could be the leader of.
I want to get back to that because that makes a lot of sense, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But before we do, so the movie ends, and of course our friends are triumphant and stuff like that. We've said previously that we weren't very familiar with Shang-Chi. However, you've done some research on the character from the comic books, right?
A little, yes.
So let's talk about the differences between MCU Shang-Chi and comics Shang-Chi, because there are big
Yes.
differences, right?
Yes. So, for instance, when he originally came to the comic books, Marvel had gained the rights to a character named Dr. Fu Manchu from a previous work.
Right.
Forgive me, I don't remember the name. He is actually Shang-Chi's father, not quote unquote the Mandarin / Wen Wu, right?
Wen Wu, yes.
Yes. The other thing, he does not use the 10 rings.
He's more of like a street level character, very much like Daredevil and things of that nature, right?
Yes.
He doesn't possess any powers per se.
Or anything that'll lend to having like pronounced powers.
He's just a very, very skilled martial artist.
Yes.
Probably one of the best in the world, except for in Marvel Comics that title really goes to Iron Fist, right?
Yes. So that's weird. How can you have two masters of martial arts? It's kind of like they need to duke it out at some point. I don't know.
Hey, that would be an interesting fight right there. If Iron Fist does make it into the MCU proper.
Yeah. And then the other thing, maybe this isn't so much leaning towards Shang-Chi, but the rings themselves are by and far the most different iteration we've ever seen them be in.
Right.
So in the comics, the 10 rings that Wen Wu or the Mandarin uses, or rather the opposite, quote unquote, whatever, each one has a sort of elemental type power.
And they're actually rings.
Yes, like you wear them on each of your fingers, rings.
Right. As opposed to the ring bracelets that we see in the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Wait, hold on. Am I the only one? When I looked at the trailer for the first time, am I the only one who was completely reminded of the Sonic rings?
I
Especially
think you
when they
are.
turn
Right?
golden, right?
Yeah, right. I was like, what the heck? Oh my gosh.
You kind of expected either Sonic or Tails to start flying.
Yeah.
And listen,
Oh,
you had the
gosh.
nine-tailed fox, right?
Oh, yes.
So maybe Shadow is a part of that.
Shadow.
Tails.
I mean, Tails, right?
Tails. Yeah.
So yeah, that's true. I never made that connection, but especially when they turn from purple to orange, that orange
Yeah.
gold look, it does
It's reminded
kind
of
of
Sonic.
look like Sonic's rings
Yeah.
Very
in a sense.
loosely, but
Yeah, like
okay.
the coins.
Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to see those rings the same way again now. So you had the rings, right?
Yeah,
Which
the rings.
in the comics are actual rings as opposed to bracelets here.
Who his father was, and I don't know. I don't.
You
This
got
is
the
the
power set
one.
also, right?
Well, yeah, we went over that. Um,
In the MCU verse, it's implied that his martial arts expertise is amplified by chi.
Oh yes, that's
So
true.
in
Sorry.
this version here, he does have somewhat of a superpower in a sense, right? Because he's able to channel his chi in a way that he can actually um control the elements around him. Because remember, when he was being taught by his aunt, one of the things that she was showing him was the fact that she was able to control the air surrounding her, and use that as a weapon against him during the training session. So in a sense, this version of Shang-Chi does have kind of a superpower in a sense, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
But the rings really make him OP.
yeah, like really, really overpowered.
So have we ever seen a level of power like the one that we saw on film in the comic books when it concerns the character?
Not that I'm aware of, though. Even without the rings, Eli actually brought to my attention that he has some pretty impressive feats. Like for one, he went toe to toe with Ares.
Who?
Correct, Shang-Chi.
Yes.
He
I think
did.
I was the one that
Yeah,
brought
that
that
wasn't
up for
me.
you.
Oh, that wasn't
I told
you.
I told you about Ares fighting what's his name?
The dude.
K starts with the K, starts with the
And not the
K.
Ares from the
Time
DC
dude.
universe,
Yes, the
because
Marvel has their own Ares.
No, it
Marvel
was
actually has their own pantheon of gods, right?
I'm not as familiar with them.
Zeus is
yes, they
there,
do. They do.
Hercules, Ares.
Yeah.
There's a quite a number of them in that thing. But Ares also made the point of saying that for a non-human, Shang-Chi in the comics is one of the very, very few that can actually keep up with Ares in terms of a physical fight, right? So maybe not powered, but like an exceptional fighter, that he can kind of go toe to toe with a god, which is interesting. But yeah, the MCU guy is super OP, super
Yeah.
overpowered, especially with the rings.
Yeah.
So, all right. So like I said, that brings us to the end credits,
Yes, the best.
which I really, really found interesting. There were two of them. There was one mid credit, and then there was one end credit scene obviously at the very end of the credits. The first one, the mid credit scene, I found to be super entertaining, and you know what? It also brought a lot of information that we needed. The second one kind of sets up maybe a Shang-Chi 2, right? So let's talk about the first one. And the first one, as much fun as we had with Slattery, Slattery from Trevor from the film, we get Wong to step
Yo.
in this case here. And
We
so
oh.
how does that end credit start? We have them at the restaurant, and that kind of is a callback to the very beginning of the film where they're meeting with friends and having dinner at a restaurant, and the friend is kind of like getting on their case because it's like, you guys are probably some of the smartest people that I know, but yet you're doing nothing with your life, right?
Yeah.
And both Shang and Katie are trying to make the case. Well, we're doing the things that we love. This is awesome. Blah blah blah. This and that, and it doesn't sit well with her.
Yeah.
So the mid-credit scene takes us back to that place.
Actually, that's the very end of the movie. The end credit scene is when they're in
Yeah.
the
Oh,
House of
okay.
Mystery.
All right. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm flipping the two. So, but let's talk about the mid-credit scene, because the mid-credit scene is the more fun one, right? I mean the end credit scene. So
Well, the
There are two.
very end credit scene is with what's her name, the sister.
Oh yeah. The
What happens? What happens is you go to the House of Mystery. They finish their meeting, and then they get to the part you're talking about.
okay. So anyway, they're talking to the friends, and surprisingly enough, they're telling him exactly everything that happened,
Yes.
like as if they were going to believe them, right?
Yeah.
Right? And they're talking about, yeah, the soul eaters, and yeah, that, I shot the dragon, I shot the monster in the neck and all this stuff, and she's totally incredulous until Wong opens up a portal.
He
Yes.
comes through.
He comes
Shang-Chi,
through.
Shang-Chi,
Yeah.
here, present.
They're in the restaurant and everybody's looking at Wong and they're like, what the heck is he doing here, right?
Yeah.
Shang-Chi? Shang-Chi? Anybody? Shang-Chi? Do we know a Shang-Chi here? And they get up and leave, and it was like, well, you need to come with us.
Yeah.
So eventually, we get to the point where they're looking at the 10 rings and they're trying to figure out its origin. And the interesting thing, and again, this is why I kind of lean toward the multiversal aspect of this thing, because Wong says he's never seen this artifact ever. They have everything documented. This is foreign to them, which would make sense if it was in a different universe. But again, that's something that we need to figure out later on, right? But they do say that the thing is maybe tech in nature, right? It may not be magical, but then again, remember what Thor says, you know, tech is magic. That's that, and vice versa, right?
That never sat well with me, but okay.
Okay, but that's kind of what we've established in the MCU. Magic could be tech, tech could be magic.
Yeah.
It depends on your point of view and stuff,
Yeah.
right? But here goes to your point that you brought up earlier. The minute that you put on the 10 rings, it's pulsing and it's acting as a beacon, which goes to your point. Maybe that beacon is reaching out to Fing Fang Foom and his people, right?
Yes.
So that's a good way of tying everything together, because maybe that's a thing that actually belongs to their race and they want it back.
Oh God. Yes.
Chitari Invasion Part 2 with
Oh,
dragon
man.
people.
That would be
Yes.
awesome and amazing, right? But the implication is that going forward, Shang is going to be working with Doctor Strange and Wong and stuff,
And the Avengers.
because I believe in one of the interviews they did mention Shang as an Avenger.
Yes.
Well, I mean, not even that. Captain Marvel was there. Hulk was there.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the funny line
Hulk.
of Captain Marvel saying, "Oh, I really got to take this. I got to go. Just call me." And Bruce was like, "Yeah, she kind of always does that. I really don't have her number." So,
But
Bruce, that's an important thing,
Bruce.
because you even mentioned it, right? The
that was
last
like,
time we saw
what
Bruce, right?
Yeah, he's always in his
He was Professor Hulk.
Professor Hulk state, but like we see him and well, obviously in like the hologram because he's far away. We see him as regular Bruce Banner.
With the arm sling.
Well,
right?
yeah, with the arm sling.
So it appears that the injury that he got from using the gauntlet, it looks like it's going to be kind of permanent, right?
That's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because according to in the comics, and again, one of the things that I really dislike about their portrayal of the Hulk in the comics, he can heal himself. He's almost, well, immortal.
Immortal.
Right.
I wanted him to bring him
Immortal
back.
Hulk, right?
Yeah.
But in this version here, he's clearly not
Nice.
that. We've never seen the Hulk really at his fullest. He's kind
Yeah.
of
That's
been
because
Hulk has
they've been
been-
letting him control himself.
Hulk has
They
been
gotta let this
horrible.
man off the leash.
Yeah, they made him almost like a pet, like Cass. Like
I'm a big
Castiel.
Hulk fan, and I'm just
Castiel.
it's
Oh,
made him-
God.
it's frustrating.
You know what? That is
to see-
actually a very good announce. Sorry, I stepped
no,
over you
it's
there.
it's
Yeah,
true.
they made him a guard dog. That's it. Oh man.
And a guard dog that is really, really leashed, because he doesn't even portray half of the powers that we've seen him in the comic book. I mean, there is a thing. Hulk strongest there is, right?
Yeah.
That's not the MCU version by any stretch of the imagination.
Even though they continually reference him as the strongest Avenger, but we never see it
Yeah.
really.
I mean, he got wrecked by Thanos.
But I have a
You
thing.
know,
I
even
have. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a really good feeling that they're gonna do something with Hulk during She-Hulk. That's gonna make him good again.
You know what version I want to see? I
What?
want to see World Breaker Hulk.
World Breaker? What is that?
Hmm?
That's
Oh God!
the one that looks like Ragnarok.
What if he's the villain in She-Hulk?
Oh
I would
man!
listen. I would love to see that.
If they do that, then he's definitely getting a huge
Hulk
upgrade.
has been the villain in a lot of comic
Yeah.
version storylines, because of the fact that he loses control. That's kind of the
Oh,
Hulk's thing, right?
they could have like a thing where like he's. I guess maybe the reason why he goes bad is because he's always being controlled. He's always put on the sidelines, and
He's trying to make
he's trying to.
himself relevant again,
He's
and then
trying
he
to make
makes
his
himself too relevant again.
yeah, he's always irrelevant to the team, and maybe that's a reason why he's gonna go off the hook. He's finally letting go of, I guess you could say, his morals in a sense. He's like
Oh,
his
I wouldn't
moral.
go that far.
Well, no, not morals. When I say no, but I'm just saying like he's not gonna let the Hulk out go like on a rampage like that.
You know what's
He's
super
not gonna do
frustrating?
that.
We can't do the World War Hulk storyline as,
Yeah.
as it is, because we've already done Planet Hulk in a sense,
Hmm.
and a World War Hulk kind of follows that with his revenge against the Earth for what they did to him by banishing him effectively. You know, um, they'd have to find another way of kind of adapting that storyline. But I really don't see it at this point
It
because
could happen in
No,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
I
He goes
really
off the rails.
I
They
hope
send him off.
so.
They send him off planet. He's had enough.
But they've done that already.
Huh?
Well,
I
they
don't
they
think they
didn't,
should send him off planet again.
because they
No.
kind of they not that they've done it, because in the comic books the Illuminati is the one that makes the decision to make him leave because he's a danger to the planet. In this version, he did it on his own because you know what, he just needed to leave, right? And he ended up in the film Thor Ragnarok, which basically adapted Planet Hulk, you know. But he's already gone off planet,
I don't
you
know.
know.
Then I don't know.
It's a weird thing, and I hope they do find a way to do it.
But
Um,
still,
so anyway, it leads. Let's get back to the thing because we're short on time here. Um, so after that scene, Wong does a thing,
Wong the God.
or rather, Shang-Chi and Katie do a thing,
It's like, all right, we'll be in touch. Let's send you home.
Yes.
or maybe
Yes.
And then not just Katie and Shang-Chi,
Wong,
but Wong
the god.
joins their revelry.
the
Yes.
party god Wong,
Oh
right?
my
the
God.
God. The God. They need
That
to release.
was a complete blindside, but it was
Bro,
amazing.
I am
release the Wong cut, bro.
Yes,
We need that. Yes.
I am loving the character of Wong and where they're taking him,
Yo,
because
Wong.
he is just too awesome, right?
He is godly. Oh my gosh.
So we get that, but then we get the other end credit scene, which shows the sister kind of taking over the 10 rings. Now, her the implication during the movie was that she was going to go and clean up the thing and kind of like depower and take apart the 10 ring organization.
Yeah,
But
no.
instead we see her kind of co-opted instead, right? She
Yeah.
kind of takes over. Do you get the sense that maybe she is going to be a villainess
No.
going forward?
I don't think so.
And the only reason I say this is because remember, at the very beginning, she mentioned that if I can't remember the exact words, but if I wasn't going to be given the thing, then I'm going to build it myself. And there was a lot of
Yeah.
resentment and not hatred, but there was definitely a thing with her and Shang because he left her and she had to grow up on herself by herself because she ran away. and obviously she kind of fell in with like the bad crowd in a sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
I
implied.
don't think
wasn't
so.
implied at
She
all.
did.
No.
So are they building an army for Shang?
No. I think that she's gonna be an anti-hero because it wouldn't really make sense for her to be a hero. I mean, if you're putting yourself in her mindset, she wasn't really given anything to work off of.
Right.
So if you have to build everything on your own, and you already don't trust anybody because you had your father abandon you, as well as your brother.
Resented also by the father.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
that
that's
was
when,
another thing
yeah.
too.
It really wouldn't make sense for her to be good. I would say that it's leaning more towards bad, mainly because, like I said, she doesn't have anybody to trust.
I mean,
She's
but-
building an empire solely for herself,
Okay, but
not for anybody
that
else.
doesn't necessarily have to be bad. The Fight Club on its own, maybe it wasn't purely good, but it's not like she was running up to people's stores and asking for like a protection payment or something.
What?
It's interesting the way they framed that scene because it was vague, very very vague. Right. We didn't get a sense of what exactly she's trying to accomplish. So all we know is that instead of dismantling the 10 rings, right, she's kind of continuing in that thing. And the weird thing is the way that she sat on that throne.
Yeah, that especially.
So it's, but like I said, the entire scene was vague, so it can go either way, to be honest, you know.
But you know what? Like you said, I really want to throw it back to that point where the way she sat on that throne, that
felt
was
like a
foreshadowing.
power hungry,
Yeah,
you know, the way her
'Cause
mannerisms there was like,
that was.
yeah, I've
I
got
like
this.
this seat. I like this
yeah.
seat. And you know what? It's funny
Okay.
because they in like previously in the movie they showed what's his name, the father doing the exact same motion,
Mm-hmm.
and that just shows like I think it's that sort of relationship where it's what you resent is what you're gonna become, and it's sort of in that sense because if you think about it, the father wasn't necessarily bad. He had good intentions for the most part.
Especially in this part, but because before he was bad.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yes.
But what he was doing now, you can kind of empathize with what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, he thought that he was bringing back his wife. He really, really loved his wife. He thought he was doing the right thing, and it turns out that he wasn't. And ultimately, he gave his life, you know, to
Yeah.
protect his kids, in a sense, right?
So she could be following the same footsteps, except she's gonna try not to make the same mistakes that he does.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Anti-hero.
So again, that scene was probably intentionally left to be very vague,
Yeah.
right? Let's get to the end of it. Did we love the movie? I think we already know the
It's
answer.
a resounding
to
yes.
I don't even need to answer it. You guys know.
I want to go watch it again.
Yes,
be
so do
honest.
I.
This is a movie that I think I'd want to watch like 3 or 4 times.
Oh my
At
god.
least.
I can't wait for the next Shang-Chi movie. The 10 Rings. And bro, that leaves a lot of speculation. Not just for Shang-Chi, but for the rest of the Marvel universe. Like, bro, you had what's his name? The Dark Dweller?
Mm-hmm.
What about the
Dweller
rest?
of
Dweller in
Darkness.
The
Darkness.
Dweller of Darkness? What about the rest of them? You have the Fear Lords to work with.
Right, exactly. Which
Oh my gosh.
the Dweller in Darkness brings nightmare.
Yeah, and by the way,
They're he's part of that group, the Fear Gods,
it's-
the Fear
Oh.
Lords.
it's also weird
Okay.
because they had one of the I think it was Nox or Pyre or whatever.
Mhm.
He was in Cloak and Dagger, the show, which I don't know if you guys remember.
I never finished that.
I know
Oh,
I
man.
started watching that. Apparently, it's non-canonical. I just searched
Canonical.
it
Yeah.
up, non-canonical. But bro, the Fear Lords, and you also have
That'd
Fing
be
Fang
awesome.
Foom to worry about.
You're setting up Doctor Strange and this
Yeah.
whole magical universe
Because-
that they're going to have to fight.
Because
So,
the Fear Lords are especially the Dweller of Darkness. He is a Doctor Strange, not mainly Doctor Strange, but it's like a more obscure Doctor Strange enemy.
So
And
you
bro,
got Fin Fang Foom, Fear Gods, Scarlet Witch potentially,
Yeah.
and even freaking Kang.
Oh my god.
That bodes well for the
Oh
next
my
phase,
God.
right?
Yeah.
Because before it was just Thanos. Now we have multiple threats.
What
That's
if
going to
you-
be very, very interesting.
Technically,
Bro,
there's
how
one
they do
more.
it. Yeah, I know.
What if you
we're
have-
getting there.
What if you have the Eternals and the Fear Lords? I mean, I don't know much about
The
the Eternals,
Deviants?
but it's like,
Well, I don't know much about the Deviants, so you know what? I can't speak on
what are the Deviants?
Well, Thanos is supposed to be a deviant, but apparently, with the Eternals movies, they've kind of like backed him out of that role. You know, hey, listen, we'll see. I'm thoroughly excited about this new phase,
Bro.
and I definitely love this movie. So there
Hell
it is.
yeah.
I think everybody should go out and watch this movie because it is awesome.
Definitely.
All right. On that note, we're going to end this show. Thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll be back next Tuesday with another exciting episode. So until then, I'm Walt.
it. I am Groot.
Oh shoot. Captain Eli.
Eli.
Oh no.
Eli in Darkness.
The Dweller of Eli. Oh yes. The Dweller of
What?
Eli. Yes,
That
that
makes
is it.
no sense.
That totally makes sense. Let's end this.
All right. Later, people.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. Let's
May
end this.
yo,
Come on,
bro,
let's go.
what are you doing?
do it.
May our 10 rings. No, may our 5 rings. Because if you have 2 paths, they cross again. But then they would be hitting each other. So technically speaking,
Our 5 rings become 10 rings, and they cross paths.
but that doesn't make sense because now you have 2 10 rings crossing paths.
So I don't know. It's crazy.
May our Fear Lords and our Fing Fang Fooms cross paths. Yes, they need to work together. Definitely. That's why you have the new Shatari.
All right. Sounds good. Later, people.